Guardians of the B.L.A.D.E. by Adalene Martis. Chapter 23. Fishing. They remained on the water planet for half a year, the facility gently submerged beneath the endless waves. The vast ocean was both a sanctuary and a prison, its depths teeming with unknown wonders and unseen dangers. Therak knew their stay would be prolonged, and he meticulously rationed their meat supplies. He combined nutrient paste with dried and frozen meats, crafted broths, and fashioned chew sticks from boiled bones. Yet despite his best efforts, the reserves dwindled. He couldn't allow Nyra and the cubs to subsist on paste alone. His pride as their provider demanded more from him. One morning, Therak stood in the equipment bay, suiting up in EVA gear designed for underwater excursions. The suit was a patchwork of repairs and modifications, but it was mostly reliable. Nyra stood beside him, her fingers deftly securing the seals and fastenings. "Therak, are you sure this is safe?" she asked, her eyes reflecting concern. "I've done it before," he replied, adjusting a strap across his chest. She frowned, her tail flicking with agitation. "That's not a good answer, Therak, and you know it." He met her gaze and offered a reassuring smile. "We need fresh meat. The cubs are growing, and they need real food." They finished fastening the last buckle. Therak lifted his helmet and slipped it over his mane. A few stubborn strands of hair fell over his eye, obscuring his vision. He fumbled for a moment, trying to tuck them back under the helmet's edge. Nyra watched his struggle with a hint of amusement. "I can trim your mane for you if you like," she offered. He sternly shook his head. "No thanks." "Why not?" she pressed, raising an eyebrow. "A male's strength is proportional to the length of his hair," he declared with mock seriousness. Nyra scoffed dramatically. "Oh, not this again." She crossed her arms. "And what if our sons don't have manes? Have you thought of that?" Therak paused, considering her words. A soft smile touched his lips. "Then I'll change my mind." He stepped toward the airlock but turned back to face her, his expression growing serious. "Nyra, if I don't come back in an hour, don't come looking for me." Her eyes widened with worry. What? Don't say something like that all of a sudden." "Don't worry. I know what I'm doing," he assured her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "But just in case, promise me you'll stay here." She bit her lip but nodded reluctantly. "All right, just be careful." He gave her a final nod before ducking into the airlock. As the door sealed shut behind him, he felt a momentary pang of unease, but pushed it aside. The chamber began to fill with water, the liquid rising steadily around him. He inhaled slowly, the air inside his helmet cool and filtered. The pressurization process was slow, allowing his body to acclimate to the increasing pressure. The water was cold but bearable, seeping into the suit's thermal layers. He knew his greatest danger wasn't the temperature, but the limited oxygen supply. With the necessary decompression time during his return, he had roughly an hour to hunt. Once the chamber was fully pressurized, the outer door slid open, revealing the vast expanse of the underwater world. Therak stepped out, the soft glow of his helmet light cutting through the murky depths. He began to swim, powerful strokes propelling him forward. To attract larger prey, he needed to make himself noticeable. He adjusted the intensity of his light, increasing its brightness to stand out against the darkness. Small schools of fish darted around him, their scales reflecting the glow. A few curious creatures approached, sleek, silver forms that moved with effortless grace. These weren't his goal, but he could use them as bait. With swift jabs from his spear, he swiftly dispatched them. allowing their blood to disperse into the water. The crimson cloud swirled around him, diffused by the gentle currents. Now he waited. The silence was profound, broken only by the rhythmic sound of his breathing and distant clicks and songs from the antediluvian depths. Minutes passed, each one stretching longer than the last. Just as doubt began to creep in, a faint light appeared below, a bioluminescent glow undulating rhythmically like a ribbon of death. Therak's muscles tensed. "Please, not a behemoth," he whispered, his voice barely audible over the sound of air cycling quicker within his helmet. The glow grew brighter, revealing the silhouette of a massive creature ascending from the depths. Its elongated body moved with a serpentine grace, scales shimmering with ethereal light. A wide maw filled with jagged teeth opened and closed methodically, tasting the blood in the water. Therak steadied himself, gripping his spear tightly. He took aim, tracking the creature's swift approach. As it closed the distance, he could see the dark void of its soulless eyes, fixed intently on him. When the moment was right, he launched the spear with all his strength. It cut through the water, striking the beast just below the gills. The creature let out a silent roar, too deep to be audible, a vibration that Therak could feel more than hear. But it didn't stop. With terrifying speed, it lunged forward, slamming into him. The impact sent shock waves through his body, knocking the air from his lungs. Therak grappled with the beast, his claws extending from his suit's gloves to latch onto its rough hide. They tumbled through the water, a chaotic whirl of limbs and tail. The creature thrashed violently, its tail whipping around and threatening to entangle him. Sharp teeth snapped dangerously close to his helmet. Drawing on his strength, Therak maneuvered himself closer to the creature's head. He spotted a pulsating area, a vulnerable spot near its neck, where the scales were thinner. Summoning all his might, he plunged his fist into the soft tissue. The creature convulsed, its movements becoming erratic. After a few agonizing moments, the beast's struggles weakened. Its body went limp, the bioluminescent glow fading from its scales. Therak released a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. Securing a cable around the creature, he began the arduous task of hauling it back to the facility. Each stroke was laborious, his muscles burning with exertion. The weight of the beast threatened to drag him downward, but determination propelled him forward. As he neared the airlock, he realized the full extent of the creature's size. It was larger than he'd anticipated, too large to fit entirely within the chamber alongside him. He maneuvered the beast, folding as much of it inside as possible. With a heavy heart, he knew he couldn't bring it all back. He pressed the button to initiate the airlock cycle. As the outer door sealed, the section of the creature that remained outside was severed cleanly, sinking slowly into the abyss. Inside the airlock, Therak leaned against the wall, exhaustion washing over him. Suddenly, a warning light flashed on his helmet display. Oxygen levels were depleting rapidly. "That's odd," he muttered. He glanced down, trying to assess the issue. His mane, damp and unruly, obscured his vision. Frustrated, he blew at the strands, finally pushing them aside. There it was, a small tear on one of the suit's cables near his chest, a steady stream of bubbles escaping into the airlock's water. "Damn it," he hissed. He clamped his gloved hand over the leak, but the flow of oxygen continued despite slowing. Hours passed like days as he was depressurized. The eye of the fish glared at him. He could almost hear its accusing stare whispering madness into his mind. Let it go," it urged. Therak's labored breathing came in rapid, short breaths. "Close your eyes," it sang as his eyes drooped. "Fuck off, fish," grumbled Therak. The fish's maw seemed to widen in a sadistic smile, cackling at him. Finally, the water began to drain from the airlock. His breathing had turned into rattling gasps, each inhale more difficult than the last. The inner door began to open, but the process was agonizingly slow. "Hurry up," he urged, his vision starting to blur. As the door finally slid open, Therak stumbled into the equipment bay. He fumbled to take off the helmet, but was unable to do so. He felt Nyra suddenly on top of him, ripping his helmet off for him. His head spun as he dropped to one knee, gulping in the fresh air. "Therak!" Nyra's voice echoed from the corridor, her eyes wide with alarm. He managed a weak smile. I'm all right." She pushed his wet mane aside and looked into his dilated and disoriented pupils, helping him to his feet. "You are not. You're hypoxic, and your suit is damaged," she said. He nodded, still catching his breath. A small leak. Nyra quickly began unfastening the suit. "We need to get you out of this," she said. As the suit came off, she inspected him. There was a shallow cut where the suit had torn, a thin line of blood mixing with the dampness on his fur. "You're hurt," she said softly. "It's nothing serious," he assured her. "Just a scratch." She met his gaze, relief mingling with frustration. "You scared me." He reached up to hold her cheek. "I'm sorry." Her expression softened and she leaned into his touch. "We could have eaten the paste." He chuckled weakly. "You say that, but I'm the one who'd have to put up with your pouting faces." She sighed and slammed her fist weakly against his chest. "Therak, you are way more important to me than some stupid fish." "Wait till you taste it," he said. "You might change your mind." They both turned to look at the massive creature now occupying a significant portion of the equipment bay. "That is one big fish," Nyra said, awe evident in her tone. He shrugged modestly. "Too bad I couldn't fit the whole thing in the airlock." Nyra closed her eyes and leaned her head against his chest, then wrapped her arms around him. "Thank you for coming back." He squeezed her gently. "I should start processing it before it spoils." "I'll help," she said, regaining some strength. Together, they set to work. The process was labor-intensive, but with both of them, the task became manageable. They carved the meat into manageable portions, setting aside sections to be dried or frozen. The air filled with the scent of fresh meat, a welcome aroma that promised hearty meals ahead. As they worked, they chatted lightly, the tension from earlier fading away. Nyra recounted amusing anecdotes about the cubs, and Therak shared tales from his previous experiences on the planet. Once the meat was securely stored, Therak left Nyra to set some cuts of meat in the oven, and then went to clean the equipment bay. He finished around the time the meal was done. Exhausted but satisfied, they headed toward the living quarters. "Therak," Nyra began softly as they walked, "please promise me you'll be more careful in the future." He glanced at her, seeing the genuine concern in her eyes. "I was as careful as I could be. This is just how things are, living on the facility, sometimes." Nyra's brows furrowed. "I see." As they entered the living area, the cubs bounded toward them, their eyes bright with excitement. "Pop-rum," they chirped in unison. Therak crouched down, opening his arms to embrace them. "Hello, my little adventurers," he said. Kieran tugged at his sleeve. "Meat! You smelled it cooking, eh?" said Therak. "Your noses are getting sharp." Nora looked up at Therak with wide eyes. "Fish?" He grinned. "The biggest, yummiest fish you'll ever taste." "I want to see," Maum said eagerly. The full sentence impressed Therak. Maum was the first of their children to begin speaking in such a way. He had a real aptitude for language, probably because he babbled and mewled so much. "Well, we already cut the fish up," Nyra interjected. but we brought some for you to taste." The cubs cheered, their excitement contagious. "Why don't you all get cleaned up for dinner?" Therak suggested. They nodded enthusiastically, scampering off to wash their face and hands. Nyra watched them fondly as she set down the tray of fish on the table. "They're growing so fast. We should start properly educating them soon." He stood beside her. "Oh, what did you have in mind?" She leaned into him. "Well, I was thinking that the AI and I could handle teaching them technical skills," she said. "And you could teach them survival skills, like cooking. Especially cooking. Did I mention how much I like your cooking?" "You might have told me once or twice," he said. Therak stooped, gathering a knocked-over scratching post, and stood it back up. A lone leather ball rolled under the table. He hooked it back with his tail and tucked it away. Nyra leaned against the bulkhead, arms folded, watching him clear the chaos into neat order. "You hide it well," she said. He flicked an ear. "Hide what?" "How much you love all this." She gestured at the reclaimed floor, at the warm plate of fish set on the counter. "The cubs, the routine, and especially the food," she said. "Therak, you risked your life for dinner and then went right into cooking for us." "Yeah," he said, as if that was the most natural thing in the world. Nyra shook her head in wonder. "A super soldier and domestic star. Who do I have to thank for such a good life mate?" He straightened, surprise softening the hard lines of his muzzle. "My parents," he admitted, lowering his voice as though the word itself were fragile. "My father began my martial training when I was 4. Mornings were drills, forms, sword work, discipline. Afterward," he allowed a small chuckle. "Afterward, the Pride's kitchens smelled better than victory. Mother would be in there, sleeves rolled, tasting sauces. I followed the scent." Nyra's tail swayed. "And she let you get underfoot?" she asked. "She put me to work," he said, a fond glint in his hazel eyes. "Mixing, chopping, minding the flame. If I wanted her company, I earned it with a spoon in my hand." He picked up a foam block from the countertop, turning it between his claws. "By the time I shipped out to the military, I could stretch a ration pack into something the whole unit would fight to guard. Kept morale high in desperate places. A good cook doesn't have to sit late-night watches and gets the last ration bar when supplies run thin." Nyra smiled, warmth flickering across her dark features. "So the legendary Sentinel warrior is just a mask that hides a kitchen prince," she said. "A prince?" He barked a low laugh. "Hardly. Just a cub who missed his mother and learned her trade so he could keep her close." Her smile softened to something quieter. She stepped forward, brushing a stray crumb from his mane. "She'd be proud. I am." He accepted the praise with a dip of his head, uncertain how else to hold it. The lights dimmed for the evening cycle, painting the room in bronze. From down the hall came a muffled splash and the sound of cubs arguing over the soap. Nyra turned to him and looked at the cut on his skin. "How's your wound?" she asked. "I'm fine. It's not even bleeding anymore," he said. She pursed her lips. "I want to disinfect it again before we go to bed," she said. "Don't let me forget." Therak scoffed. He wanted to tell her he was fine again, but he decided to let her fuss over him. The attention felt nice. They shared a quiet moment before the cubs rejoined them. The meal was lively, with Therak animatedly recounting his battle with the fried sea monster that was now on their plates. The savory meat was crisp at first bite and flaked pleasantly in the mouth. It was delicious. The happy mouth sounds and looks of delight on his family's faces had been well worth the fight.